You know, summer is on the way, and of course, nothing goes better with sunshine and warm weather than an ice-cold beer. Well, the Tri-State has long been a beer mecca. Well, that ended during Prohibition, but even then, the beer still flowed at violent and frequently, actually highly illicit beer camps. Launching another episode of Tri-State True Crime.
Although national prohibition began in Ohio with the efforts of the Anti-Saloon League, the state would become a hotbed of corruption for bootleggers and gangsters in the 1920s and 30s. And while we think of champagne parties in the Great Gatsby or speakeasies that required that special knock or password to enter, countless people across the tri-state from the working classes got their illegal booze at beer camps. These weren't sleepaway camps for adults, like the name might imply for us today. Beer camps were actually set up on the banks of rivers and streams, sometimes with tents or in rough-hewn buildings or old barns. Proximity to the water cut down on some of the noise that might alert nosy people nearby. The water also limited access, making it more difficult for law officials to raid. And although beer camps might seem like a place we would want to go, like much of the Prohibition era, mixing cheap beer and liquor with drunken, frequently armed people led to violence. Local lore has it, for example, that the 160-mile-long Great Miami River and 111-mile Little Miami River that ran through our area and Indiana were both used to dispose of the dead bodies of people killed at beer camps or dumped by gangsters and thugs. The rivers and the countless tributaries in Ohio and Indiana gave bootleggers a lot of places to set up beer camps, which supplied cheap beer to the masses, especially in rural areas. Much of the violence of beer camps will never be fully understood because people disappeared and the crimes were never reported. The old adage, no body, no crime. But from the existing paper trail, we know that local and regional officials announced war against beer camps because of the extreme violence and decadence. In 1927, along the Great Miami, sheriffs told informants to pass the word that all camps had to be shut down, particularly after evidence of slot machines and gambling were found at the isolated camps. August 24, 1928. Prohibition agents wielding axes raided sites across Butler County, including Woodsdale, Amanda, Gregory Creek, and then across Middletown. They found wooden tables and countless ice boxes and furniture at the camps, which they smashed, along with several gallons of homemade whiskey and hundreds of bottles of beer. In 1930, at a beer camp on the White River near Lawrenceburg, Indiana, a Brookville patron was killed after a thug attempted to shoot ventilation holes in the camp's wood walls and hit him instead. When Sheriff Herman Lang attempted to arrest James Anderson for that crime, the murderer ambushed the officer and killed him too. These incidents are just a handful that took place during the 1920s and 1930s, and another example of the many unreported crimes and misdeeds making up Tri-State True Crime.
So right now, let's welcome back the mayor of Misdeed, the one who curates these true crimes. You get a great title every time you come on this show. Our cultural historian, Bob Batchelor. Bob, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks to be good to be here, Clyde. Thank you.
Bob, you know, there's a lot about the Prohibition era we don't know. There's some things we talk about that are rumors or old legends, but there's a lot we don't know. Why don't we know more about beer camps these days?
Well, people needed a place to drink, and they needed a place to gather. And so rivers in this area and into Indiana and down in Kentucky became a prime location for gangsters and thugs to get cheap booze into the gullets of the working class and poor people who wanted to stay away from cities and didn't want to being arrested. But anywhere you get together with booze and heavily armed people, there's going to be violence. So we know a little bit about this because they became such dens of iniquity that the law enforcement agents had to do something about it.
Well, so much for that squeaky clean image that we have of ourselves here, Bob. Thanks so much for sharing this story with us. And for people who want to read more, would you let us know how they can get in touch with you?
Yes, definitely. You can search for me at bobbatchelor.com. Also, dig around. If you look hard enough, you can see beer camps and the remnants in New from here through Detroit, and it makes for fascinating reading.
Yes, it absolutely does. Hey, thanks for sharing this story with us, Bob.
Thank you.
All right.